Okay, so welcome to some fusion help with this first isometric model. I put a picture of the isometric model right here in the sketch so that it's a little helpful um, to see while I'm designing. So remember, the very first thing we need to do after we've started our design is we have to create a sketch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use these shortcut toolbars. I've already gone over the fact that there's other menus buried beneath, but I've found that clicking on these little shortcut toolbars are a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a sketch. Notice how I've got my pieces of paper, which are called work planes. I'm going to select this work plane, which is my XY direction. It's a good place to start. I can also see my sketch that I put in too. You'll see this is called sketch 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this front view of this object that I'm drawing here, and I'm going to try to replicate this surface here, which kind of looks like an L. So I'm going to snap to my origin and kind of draw the up part of the L, and then I'm going to snap to this corner. Notice how I'm snapping with that little, you'll see that little rectangle shape appear when I grab onto a corner. So that's the L shape. It's not sized. I don't know how big it is, but at least proportionally it's approximately right. Then I'm going to come up here to dimension. When I dimension something, I can do it a couple of ways. I could click on two endpoints, like this endpoint to this endpoint, and then drag out. And then my third click will place the dimension. If I come over here to my grid, this is 1/4 inch for every single square. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, I can dimension this to be 5 times, and the times symbol is the asterisk, 0.25. So Fusion will do the math. So 5 times 0.25. It'll do the math for me. You know, I could also get a calculator out or do it in my head, and I know that 5 times 0.25 is 1.25, so I could also type that number in, but let Inventor do the math for me, right? The width of this little L top shape is 2 squares wide. So the other way I could dimension, notice how that button is still clicked. So I can keep dimensioning. If I want to get out of it, press escape. So that's a very handy thing to know, is to press escape if you don't want to keep doing what your last click was. But I do. I want to go back into dimensioning, and I want to click on the line and drag up. So notice how, escape, notice how last time when I clicked dimension, I clicked on the two endpoints and drug up. 2 times 0.25, oops, sorry, times 0.25. The other way I could do it is I could just literally click on the line itself and drag out. So this edge right here, you'll notice is 1, 2. I'm not counting all the way from this end. I'm just counting the length of this, because it's only that I want to know the distance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 times 0.25 gives me that 1.25 again. Now, how tall is this little shape here? This is 2 squares tall, so 2 times 0.25. I did it again, times 0.25. All right, so now I've got the shape. Notice how it's all black. That means it's fully constrained and all the sizes and all the dimensions are there. If I press escape and I try to grab it, nothing moves, so that's good. If nothing moves, that means I can finish my sketch and I can extrude it. So clicking on extrude, nothing happens until I select what profiles I want to extrude, and then I can pick which operation I want to do. Since I don't have a body yet, I want to make sure it's set to create a new body, and I'm going to count how deep it should be extruded to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. I'm going to go ahead and do 5 times 0.25. And once I do that, you're going to see that I now have a solid. The solid is there, but it doesn't have these little cutouts up top, and on the bottom. So I can do those cutouts in any order that I choose. It's up to me. I think I'm going to work on this bottom cutout first. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to click on the one of the faces. So when I click on Sketch, you'll notice that those orange work planes come up again, and I could click on those, but that's not really going to help me. I want to click on the face of the model. So I could click on this face and draw this as the rectangle, or I could click on the front face and I could cut that out from this side. I think I'm going to click on this face. Now, I could draw it from this view, but since I want to see my sketch, I better kind of tilt that kind of a little bit so that we can see what I'm doing as I'm drawing. So I'm going to draw another rectangle, making sure that when I draw it, I click the front corner of the rectangle and I snap to this front edge. Don't snap to the midpoint. You see that little triangle? That would lock the corner of the rectangle to halfway, and then I wouldn't be able to move it. So I'm going to make sure that I lock it somewhere along here and then drag it out. And you can see when I press escape that rectangle now is locked to the front edge of the object, but it doesn't have any dimensions. So that's when I have to add my sketch dimensions. How wide is it? I'm sorry, how long is it? Well, 1, 2, 3 squares, so 3 times 0.25. And then how wide is it? If I click between two edges, I clicked on this edge, and then that edge, and then in between, 0.25. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in so you can see. I dimensioned in between these two edges, 0.25, and I dimensioned in between this edge, and it's 0.75. Okay, I'm going to press escape because you're going to notice that these are still blue. That's because there's nothing telling it how far off of the edge of the part it's supposed to be. So if I look, it's 2 spaces or 2 units away from the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dimension from this edge to here, and I'm going to say 2 times 0.25, and now it's there. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish my sketch because now it's all constrained, it's all black. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click extrude, but this time when I pick the profile, I'm going to change my operation from new body to cut. When I cut it, the direction, I'm going to go ahead and change that. Actually, no, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to change the extent. I want to cut everything. So I'm going to say all. And notice how now it's going to cut everything that's in that path, everything that's in its way. And I'm going to say OK. And there you go. So now I've got that little bottom slot that's been cut out. So now we can work on this top part. Again, I'm going to create a sketch. I could pick this top surface, or I could pick this front surface. If I picked the front surface, I would draw a rectangle and I would cut all again. So I'm going to do the top surface just so I can show you how to cut with a distance. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick this top surface. I'm going to tilt my world a little bit so I can see what this looks like. I'm going to draw my rectangle. I'm going to snap to this edge and snap to this edge. This way that rectangle is locked. And then I'm going to dimension how wide this little rectangle is. 1, 2, 3 units wide. So in this case, that'd be 3 times 0.25. And it's still blue because it doesn't know how far it should be off the edge. Look, it could even go all the way over here. It doesn't know. So I'm going to tell it by dimensioning from this edge to this edge. And I'm going to say 0.25 because it's 1 block off the edge. Now it's all black. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish my sketch. Extrude, pick my profile. And notice, if I look, it's 1 square deep. So I'm going to go back down to my operation, and I'm going to say cut. For my distance, notice how this arrow shows the direction. I'm going to go ahead and say negative 0.25. And you'll see that that arrow just flipped downward. So when I hit OK, give it a second, you can see that now my object is finished. So there you go. we're all done. The object has been created. We did that in about 10 minutes. So fairly simple. You can pause this video as you need, but there you go. Thanks for watching. Give me 5 stars.